Good morning, all of you. Now, in previous video, we discussed about the arithmetic gradients. We discussed about that arithmetic gradient, some increment in each year. If there is some increment in each year, that rate of increment, if you plot that graph, that will appear as a linear graph. And that in that case, we consider that it is a arithmetic gradient. So we go through that numericals based on that arithmetic gradient. So sometime this as discussed previously, that arithmetic gradient will find out like this. That arithmetic gradient will find like this. So in this curly bracket, whatever this factor is related to that arithmetic gradient factor, that factor is related to the arithmetic gradient factor. Now sometime this here we finding that present value, from that for particular gradient factor, or particular increment given for each year, So by considering that gradient, we find this present value P. So similarly we can find out that future value. And that annuity value, from that given gradient G. So here in this formula, we consider, or we find out this present value P by considering that gradient G. Similarly, this formula we can use to find out the future value from given value of gradient. And finding annuity value A for a given value of gradient G. So here this formula, we simply use this formula to find out that particular future value and particular annuity value from the given gradient G. So in this so this is the case, finding future worth from that given gradient factor G. So we know this formula to finding the future worth. F is equal to P into this particular factor, P into this future worth factor, and that factor is denoted like this: P into 1 plus I raised to n. This formula comes from that basic formula. For the compound interest. So this factor we represented as P into 1 plus I raised to n. Now this P, this present value P, we can consider from that particular gradient formula. So this P here, we can consider from this particular gradient formula. So this P value we put here. In this formula, and this formula become like this. P value from that particular gradient formula we put here, and now this formula changes like this. So by using this formula, we can find out the future worth. Future worth for a particular given gradient. Similarly, we can find out E or annuity. From that given gradient factor, So finding out that annuity, we have this formula. P into this bracket. So this P value again put here. From that given gradient formula. And now this formula is modified like this. This formula after simplification will appear like this. So this is the gradient factor for the annuity equivalence. This gradient factor we consider for calculation of annuity. So this gradient factor we consider for the annuity equivalence. So by using that particular approach, By using particular approach to find out present value from the given gradient, that formula we can utilize to find out the future value and find out the annuity value from that given gradient factor. So we simply go through some numericals based on this two formulas to find out the annuity and find out the future value. So this is one numerical given. So in this numerical, this Ramesh deposited his annual Diwali bonus into a saving account that pays 8% interest compound annually. His bonus increases by rupees 1500 each year, and the initial bonus amount is rupees 8000. Determine how much money will be Ramesh. In this example, this future value is calculated. This future value is calculated by summation of these two terms. Now this future value in this example, 8,000 amount. So 8,000 amount we will get yearly. 8,000 amount we will get yearly. So 8,000 amount we will get yearly. In this 8,000, some 1,500 amount is added each year. 1,500 amount added each year. And we have to find out what will be the future value F for this annual amount with this increment amount 1,500 with some interest rate 8%, for 10 year of period of time. So here that period of time is considered n as a 10. Period of year considered as n as a 10. So n considered here as a 10. Now here we have to find out that future value f. Now here there are two cases. Annuity value 800. We will get annuity value 800. So each year we will get 8,000. We will get each year 8,000 amount. So that annuity is considered 8,000. So with this consideration of annuity value 8,000, there is some future value. Plus with this increment of 1,500 each year. With this gradient and with this interest rate 8%, again there is some future value for this 10 year. By considering this 1,500 each year, gradient each year. So this total future value is a summation of annuity value, is summation of future value from the annuity value of 8,000 each year plus gradient value 1,500 each year So this total value f is a summation of f value or future value for this 8,000 and for this 1,500 gradient value. So these are the two terms. There are two terms. This first term is related to the annuity value of 8,000 each year, and the second term is related to the some increment. Consider as a gradient 1,500 for each year. So this second term related to this 1,500 gradient term. So this gradient term, in this gradient term, again there is a annuity equivalence term. We consider annuity equivalence term into this future equivalence term. So this second term is related to the gradient term. 1,500 for each year, and this term is related to the annuity 8,000 per year. So these are the two terms. So this term, now second term, is a product of this annuity equivalence term and this future equivalence term. This we will calculate now. Calculated like this. So future equivalence term or future equivalence factor, we know this formula for future equivalence factor that we already go through for the future equivalence formula like this. For future equivalence formula like this, like this. So by using this future equivalence formula, we can find out this factor as a 14.487. And this annuity equivalence formula, again we go through that annuity equivalence formula, this annuity equivalence formula, this annuity equivalence formula, and that will be used here. So this will be 3.871. Again this future equivalence factor that will already calculated as 14.487. This total value become like this. So in this example, this future value is a part of this future value have two parts. One is from the annuity value and another from the gradient term. Another from the gradient term. So this is the summation of both the terms. Total future value summation of these four terms that we calculated from the formula that we already go through for the finding future worth and finding the annuity from the given gradient factor. Similarly, for this the example based on this annuity equivalence term. So in this example, so here it is given as a what is the equal payment series for 8 years. Equal payment series for 8 years, that is equivalent to payment series starting with rupees 10,000 at the end of the first year and decreasing by rupees 500 each year over 10 years, and that interest is 6% compound annually. So in this example, some amount is given, and that we will get for 8 years. We will get for the 8 years, and that amount is 10,000. And at each year, after each year, that amount is reduced by 500. After each year, that amount is reduced by the 500 rupees. For this period of consideration, they ask for find out that particular value or annuity equivalence for the 8 years. They are to ask to find out the annuity equivalence for the 8 years. So N is considered as 8. And that annuity equivalence we have to find out with some decrement 500 each year, with some compound rate 6%. With this consideration, we have to find out that annuity value for the 8 years. So this final annuity value A for 8th year, this is the consideration of A1. This is consideration of A1 minus A1 is nothing but 10,000. That starting from 10,000. 10,000 minus this factor. 10,000 minus this consideration is the annuity equivalence factor. This consideration from the annuity equivalence factor that we already go through this formula. This is the annuity equivalence factor A by G for particular rate I and for particular period of time N. So this factor is the annuity equivalence factor that we use here. G into A by G, annuity equivalence factor I percent and N. So this will be calculated from this formula. We put that I value 6%. N is the 8th year. And that particular factor is nothing but G value. Again, G value considered 500, and that particular factor is a 3.195. And with simplification, we will get the total annuity for each year for 8 year period of time. For each year for 8 year period of time is 8,402. These examples are based on the finding out annuity from that particular gradient or particular increment or decrement, and finding out that future value from that particular gradient. These examples are based on this particular cases for finding out annuity and finding out the future worth. So in the next video, we'll go through the geometric gradient. We'll go through the geometric gradient and some terms, continuous compounding and the perpetual payment.